Hello and welcome back everybody. We're going to be taking a look at Activity 5.2b Miniature Train. In this particular case, we're going to be taking a look at the Miniature Train Wheel. Just before we get things going, I would highly recommend you go on out to Power School and you find this guy right here, the Miniature Train Wheel cheat sheet. And when you when you pick on it and take a look at it, this is what you're going to be seeing. So this is really going to help simplify what the profile is going to be that we're going to revolve. So make sure you have this in front of you, and a lot of these dimensions are going to be making sense as I'm plugging them into Inventor. So with that said, make sure, once again, keep that in front of you, and let's go ahead, let's get started. Let's go on up, start a new standard inch IPT, and let's go out here and start a 2D sketch, pick any plane. All right, so we're going to go out there and revolve a profile, and the part that we're going to get after we revolve it is going to have a hole down the center of it. So when we start our sketch, we are not going to be starting the sketch from the origin. Instead, there's going to be a void or a gap, and when that revolves, that's going to be a hole. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to come out here and we're going to draw a line. We're going to keep that vertical. It's going to be off of the origin, and let's go ahead. Let's dimension that line, and that line is going to be a distance of 0.25. Okay, the other thing you're going to have to do is go ahead and dimension the line to the origin, and that needs to be a distance of 0.14. Okay, and now that we have that started, now we can come out here and we're going to draw a line starting from this endpoint, keeping that horizontal, and that must have a dimension of 1.125. That is not correct. So that's going to be a dimension from the origin to this endpoint, and that needs to be 1.125. There we go. Now we got it. All right, so now we're going to be drawing a line starting from this endpoint. We're going to take that straight down, keep it vertical, and that needs to have a distance of 0.25. And now we're going to draw a line starting from this endpoint, okay, and then this needs to be coming over a distance. I'm just going to go ahead and draw the line. So it's going to be indicating that that's 0.75, okay, from this origin. So we're going to go ahead and dimension from here to here, and we're going to indicate that that needs to be 0.75. Okay, once that is done, we're going to go ahead and draw a line. From this endpoint, we're going to take that straight up, and now we're going to come back and we're going to dimension that because that needs to be 0.125. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw a line starting from here. I'm just going to take this over just a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and dimension from the origin to this endpoint. And that's indicating to me that that is 0.25. Just like so. Now I can go ahead and draw a line down, keeping that vertical. And I'm going to go ahead and dimension this. This needs to be 0.25. Oops, sorry, 0.125. And now I can go ahead and draw a line from this endpoint to this endpoint. Okay, and then that should be a leftover distance of 0.110. Okay, so I think we have everything in place. That's a little bit tricky to dimension that, but if you just follow this video tutorial, should be no issues. So anyway, okay, I think we are set and ready to go. Let's go ahead and one last thing. Let's go ahead and let's draw a line starting from the origin, and let's just send that straight up. Okay, it does not matter the distance on it. We're going to use it as the axis. So just draw a line. Does not matter the distance. So go ahead and finish the sketch. Now we're going to come out and do a revolve. That's our profile. So we're going to go ahead and select the profile, red arrow for the axis, and we're going to see how it spins around that at full 360. We're going to go ahead and say OK. All right, so I'm going to flip this over and take a look at it. All right, so as you can tell, with what's been given to us, obviously this doesn't look correct yet. We have to add fillets to it. So let's go on up to our fillet command. And the first fillet we're going to be applying is a radius 0.125. So make sure a 0.125 is in there for your fillet. And we are going to come up here and now pick on this edge. And we're going to be picking on this edge. And you're going to see how those curve over perfectly, okay, for that round wheel. And now I'm going to come back in, go into fillet. I'm going to click to add. In this case, I'm now going to be adding our 0.0625 fillet. And now I can select this edge and select this edge, select this edge, and select this edge to round that over. Say OK. All right, so we've now taken our wheel and we've rounded it. So now I'm going to go ahead. Looks like in this case, I need to come out here and start drawing the spokes that are in the inside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and start a 2D sketch. I'm going to be picking the interface. All right, so our first spoke is going to be directly here at the top. So there's a couple circles that we're going to have to draw first. And we're going to go ahead and draw our first circle. Starting from the center point, we're going to be drawing that up. Okay, same place again, starting from the center point, drawing that circle up. And let's go ahead and add some dimensions to them. So our outer circle that we've just created is going to have a radius of 0.625. So 0.625 multiplied by 2, okay, that's going to give us our diameter. Same thing with this circle. We're going to go ahead and dimension that. And that looks like it has a radius of 0.375. So we're going to type in 0.375 multiplied by 2 to give us that diameter. And now we're going to go ahead and draw a line starting from the center point, okay, and we're going to go ahead and just send that straight up. Okay, it does not matter the length. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a line starting from the center point. I'm just going to draw that over. And I'm going to draw another line starting from here. Okay, send that up on the other side. And so taking a look here, looks like our spoke is going to be 30 degrees. So what that calls for us to do is come out here and dimension from this vertical, okay, to this line we just created. We're going to send this up, and that's going to be half of 30, so that would be 15. We're going to dimension from the center to this line we've drawn out, and that's going to be 15. And now all we have to do is come out here and trim this up. So we'll go ahead and trim out all the geometry from this spoke. And we can go ahead and leave it like that. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and finish the sketch. Now what we're going to be doing is coming in here and picking both of these profiles, and we're going to do a cut and say all and go with an OK. And now, so we have 6 of these spokes that are going to be at 360 degrees. So this is going to be a circular pattern. So we come up to circular pattern. We're going to grab that extrusion, or you could grab it from the browser. We're now going to be hitting the red arrow, and we're going to be picking the inside of this hole for our rotation axis. Last thing you need to do is make sure that 6 have been placed for this, and go ahead and say OK. So looking at this from the front, we can see our spoke is directly at the top, which is great. Okay, the next part of this is we have to come over and we have to create the cylinder. Unfortunately, this cylinder, okay, we're not going to be creating it from the surface that I'm currently hovering on. Instead, what we're going to do is create a work plane, and we're going to extrude back to it. In order to do that, I'm going to slightly orbit this. I'm going to come in and start a 2D sketch. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pick, hold, and drag, and I'm going to be pulling this out in this direction. So right now, on my screen, it's indicating that this is at 0.8125. If we look at the dimensions close enough, they provide to us, we can see that this cylinder is actually 0.375 above that surface. So what I'm going to do is come in here, I'm going to put in 0.375. Okay, and we can see that 0.375 has applied it to the work plane. Okay, and that's what's hovering above the wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and green check it. And the last part of this is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make sure that this is tracking from the center point. I'm going to go ahead and create my circle. Okay, the dimension of this circle looks like it needs to be a diameter of 0.25. And it looks like the center of that cylinder is going to be 0.7 from the center of this hole. So I'm going to go ahead and dimension from this center point to this center point our distance here, which is 0.7. Last thing I would like to do is go out here and make sure that there is a horizontal constraint between this center point and this center point. Okay, sometimes that happens depending on which plane you're working on. So if that's the case, just simply go over to the vertical and this should correct it. Okay, and we'll see that those are now aligned. So this has been fully constrained, as we can see at the bottom right hand corner. Let's go ahead and finish the sketch. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do an extrude. We're going to send it in the opposite direction, but instead of picking on distance, we're going to come down here and just say to next. it's going to realize that there is a surface there it's going to run into contact with, and it's going to extrude to that surface. So let's go ahead and say OK. Now I'm done with this work plane, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on the work plane and uncheck the visibility. Now I'm going to come out here and start a 2D sketch on the top of the cylinder that I previously created. I'm also going to go ahead and project geometry because I would like that point to show up right there. The next thing that we have to do is come out here and create a circle. And the dimension of that circle is going to be a diameter of 0.125. So we're going to go ahead and put in 0.125 for my diameter, and we're going to come out here and finish the sketch. Next thing you're going to do is go out here to extrude, and we are now going to extrude that guy out, and it looks like that's going to be an extrusion distance of 0.125. We're going to go ahead and say OK on the extrusion. And the last thing that we have to do is drill a hole. That's 0.0625, and that's going to be drilled to a depth of 0.25. So I'm going to go ahead and start a 2D sketch on the surface of this cylinder that we just previously created. I'm going to project geometry of that surface so I can get that point. And now I'm actually going to draw my own point on top of that point, okay, as a location for our whole feature. I now come out and go to my whole feature. Okay, and we know that this is going to be a 0.0625 diameter hole. Okay, and that is going to be drilled to a depth, looks like it's telling us quarter of an inch, so 0.25. Make sure that your drill point is flat, and go ahead and say OK. All right, so there is our wheel. That is completely done. And now what we're going to be doing is coming up here, going to ABS plastic. Make sure ABS plastic has been applied. And now come over here to the color override, and we're going to be using orange. Orange is going to be the wheel color. So ABS plastic with an orange color override. And there you go. That is it for wheel. Very tricky with the Revolve, but if you use the cheat sheet, that's going to be a big help for you. Follow the video tutorial, you should have no problem. So there you go. Video tutorial for activity 5.2b, train wheel.